I'm Nathaniel Parker, and I am in a play, an evening of plays called Summer at 54, which are two one-act Terence Rattigan plays that have never been done together before. In fact, one of them, the first one, Table Number 7, comes from another couple of one-act plays called Separate Tables. And Table Number 7 hasn't been done, even when it was done, has never been done like this before. We've had to include some of the first play, and we've changed the orientation within it, which is exciting. It's how Terence Rattigan first wrote it, but was not allowed to play it. The Lord Chamberlain said that the sort of direction of Scandal was not allowed. So we had to use...
That's because most of his plays really are sort of about sexual frustration in a way, are they not?
Yes, they are absolutely right. They are. To a degree, yeah. And he was gay, but homosexuality was not permitted in 1954. And so any reference to that was erased at the time. And I think there may have been one other production at Manchester in the early 2000s, but otherwise this is the first time it's been done like this. And it's never been doubled with the second play we're doing, which is Browning version, which is an absolute monster of a play. I mean, both of these are 1 hour. I can tell you what the timings are almost every night now. 1 hour and 4 minutes every night for each half, and which is very palatable, I think, if you're an audience member. It's an extraordinary monster of a play. I love it. And it's only ever done by giants, really.
Why do you think you've paired these two? Because Table Number 7 is normally paired with, is it Table at the Window?
Yeah, in separate tables. Well, it comes as a double act, and Brown Version actually comes as a double act with a play called Harlequin. But that's a farce. And I tell you, the reason he did that, I think, is because the Baroness is so damn heavy that you need a farce afterwards for the second half of the evening. But we're not doing it like that. And it's very sweet, actually. My daughter, I've got a 28-year-old daughter, actor, writer, singer, and called Angel, and she knew the play, the Browning version, before I agreed to it. Said, "Yes, Dad, you've got to do this. You've got to do this play." And then she came to see it. And then she came on tour with me for a couple of nights. I said, "Should I get you a ticket?" She said, "No, I'm not seeing that again." I'm not seeing you be so sad ever again like that, Dad.
Who are you in the show with?
Oh, well, a little-known actress, up-and-coming lady called Dame Sian Phillips. Sian is 92, I think, now. There was a documentary on the BBC about Sian called Sian at 90. It's out of date. I mean, it's extraordinary. The woman is a phenomenon. And not just because of her age. She's a fantastic actress. And her timing is impeccable. As people often say to me, "Oh, how does she remember all the lines? Is she okay with the lines?" She's no worse with the lines than any of us, I tell you. I sometimes manipulate a little bit of Rattigan when I shouldn't. But no, she's wonderful and such a presence. The thrill for me, walking down take a curtain call, holding her hand, is a wonderful feeling. It makes me very proud, and I mean, for me, so much of the enjoyment of theatre is exactly that, the enjoyment of theatre. Yes, there might be tough subjects and really drilling down into your soul, but you've got to enjoy it. You've got to.
And they're both double-handed, these shows, these plays.
No, Sian actually isn't in the second one. And no, the first one has, I think there's a cast of about 13, 14.
Oh.
And the second one has a cast of 7.
Right.
There's Lolita Chakrabarti is in both. Jeremy Newman Stewart is in both. There's a couple of them. All of us in Browning version are also in the first play. And my character in the first play, the Table Number 7, when they did it as a movie, they had David Niven winning an Oscar for it. It's, and it's not. He's not even there for a whole chunk of it. But it's so well done and so moving. And it's a slice of life in a Bournemouth hotel in 1954. And a little scandal has happened with this chap who pretends to be a major, my character. And I won't give away anything else, but it's it's so touching, it's so real. Rattigan sort of went out of favour in 1954, 55, when Look Back in Anger came on. Actually, it was 56, I think, Look Back in Anger appeared on the West End stage, or Royal Court. And he went on a Friday night and, in the interval, wanted to leave. He said, well, that's the end of my career, isn't it? Because suddenly you got what's called kitchen sink drama, which is real and gritty and and people throwing saucepans at each other and women standing up for themselves, which was quite a rare thing in theatre world. And his plays are much more delicate. I'm not saying John Osborne's plays weren't crafted in the same way. Of course, he's a master, but there's something about Rattigan which is almost Shakespearean. He's so clever.
Very stylish.
Yes, so stylish. And with, when you're looking at plays like Richard II or something, which Johnny's about to do, isn't it? But you look at plays like that, which are all poetry. And within that, you've got all layers of emotion and tearing apart of landscapes and royalty. And it's fantastic. Vatican's very similar. It's a very calm, beautiful edifice. But behind it is, oh my God! I have a line actually in that play to the lady who runs the hotel. There's a good deal more goes on behind that calm front of yours than anyone would imagine, and it's sort of reflecting of the whole play. It's so true. So there's that one, and the second one is a play about an old schoolmaster, and it's on his last day of term, and he's having to leave the school early. Because of an illness, and go and teach at a crammer's, which was always slightly frowned upon in the private school network. And he was a rather ineffectual, sad kind of teacher. Does the classics. He's a brilliant classical scholar, but that meant really, quite interestingly, he knows nothing about life. So he was, he sort of gets, he would love his world, his life to be that of sort of the Iliad, but actually it ends up being Look Back in Anger for him. It's just, and the play takes place over 45 minutes, an hour. He's on stage for 45 minutes, that's the only bit that counts really. And it unravels, his life unravels. He would have been fine going away, doing what he had to do, and just getting on with it. But it unravels in the most tortuous way.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. I mean, utterly layered.
Where have you taken this show to?
We started in Bath, which was great. Bath is a great theatre to start a play in. The energy there is superb, and the audiences love it. They're very bright, and then we're doing now what they call the Waitrose tour. Little plug for a supermarket. No, we go from there. We went from there to Malvern and then to Cambridge, and then we had a break for the Panto season because theatres need to make their money every year, so they don't block in regular plays over that. Yeah. Very few of them, and we've just started again this week in Chichester, which is another great place to start a play. Actually, I've never done that, but it's a beautiful theatre, and it's unlike any other that I know in this country. Bath, Cambridge, more, and then the theatres we're going to next, Richmond, Cheltenham, Oxford, are all front on proscenium arch plays, theatres. Chichester is a thrust, a little bit of a thrust, so it comes out into the audience.
Like the Crucible.
Yeah, but
older.
And big. I mean, it's a fascinatingly big stage. Because I've worked at the Swan Theatre, for instance, at Stratford, which is possibly my favourite theatre in the world. I adore it. It's really close. It's a small stage. The audiences are right there. It's all wood. The acoustic's incredible. You can say something to somebody down here, and they don't mind because they're going to get the next bit up there. And it's a really lively, wonderful theatre. But this place is big. Now, when I did Wolf Hall many years ago, Wolf Hall, Bring Up the Bodies, we started at the Swan in Stratford with 22 of us on stage in costume on this small stage. It was really quite extraordinary, dancing and moving all the time. And then we ended up going to the Aldwych, We sold out there, and we sold out the Aldwych, and we go to America to a theatre called Winter Garden, where they used to have Cats for 30 years. And it's the same configuration as Chichester.
Right.
So it comes out into the audience in a sort of point, and there's people behind you at the same time. So you have to keep moving. You can't block sight lines. If you're standing next to each other like that, you'll block a sight line. If I've got somebody there, that's not very interesting to film, is it? So you got to constantly, be doing this, or this person's doing that, or something, and it's really interesting. It adds a new thing to the character, really.
Yeah.
So in fact, my first the character in table number 7 has suddenly become much more nervous. And when we get to Richmond next week, when we're back on Pross Arch, I'll have to somehow incorporate that because I'm really enjoying what I'm doing.
So going back to you, as it were, obviously you mentioned some of the fantastic things that you've done over the last how many years. But
how many years? Yes. Thanks very much for that. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, the last few years. Yeah.
Yeah. From a small boy, did you always want to act?
Yeah. There was never any question. Well, I spent the first 9 years of my life, and this is. It'll seem like ancient history to some of your viewers, I hope, because hopefully you've got some younger viewers. In 1962, I was born, so I'm 62 years old. And I spent the first 9 years... See, we didn't have any, all the communication things we have now. So if you watched a telly or you went to the movies, they were really impactful, or the theatre. They were really impactful. And I wanted to be anything I saw in any of those media. I wanted to be a train driver or an astronaut or a Fred Astaire. You name it, I wanted to be it. And then when I was 9, I went to... my parents put me on a train to Cambridge by myself to go and see my sister in her first term at Cambridge University. She was playing... So she was 9 years older than me. She was playing Lady Macbeth. And... So I went up by myself, in those days, geez. And I sat in an auditorium, not unfortunately the same one that I played a few weeks ago, but the same city, so it meant a lot to me. And I sat there and it was a full house. I didn't know any of these people next to me, but anyway, I was watching. And my sister comes on. And I suddenly went, oh. So all the things I want to be, I just have to rehearse for. I can be a 12th century Scottish king. I can be a doctor without training for 6 years. I can do it in 3 weeks. Yes! And I suddenly realized my whole life changed. And I went, oh, this is going to be so much fun. And I've never looked back.
And what did it take from, through your teens and so on?
Oh, yeah, I started doing stuff immediately, really. And I'd always been acting at home and doing stuff at home, and voices were one of my favourite things. I do lots of accents and that kind of stuff. And then I started to join, when I went to a school which had a proper drama club. That was great fun, but I used to slip out at night to go and join the local drama club as well when I was 14, 15. They thought I was in my dormitory, and I'd slip out and go, I'm being, very naughty.
And did you study acting at college or anything?
Yes, well, I went from school. I failed all my exams because I was dyslexic. I am dyslexic, and I didn't know it at the time. And in my day, dyslexia really wasn't taken seriously. So, we didn't have any facility for it, really. There was one other kid who was very dyslexic, and there was a bit of, as he used to call it, he used to call it dysleptic. He was taken quite seriously and was given extra time. But I didn't know that I was. I had a sister who was up at Cambridge and then went on to do, get masters in 4 different universities. And I had a brother.
Lot to live up to.
I had one brother who took his A-levels when he was 16. I had another brother who was doing crosswords in Latin when he was 11. I had a very high achieving family. My dad was...
Big pressure.
Yeah. My dad, you see, had lost both of his brothers during the war. And just a regular working class lad, didn't come to the country till he was 14, but lost both his brothers. And so he wanted to achieve everything that they could have achieved in his parents' eyes. So that sense of ambition, that sense of drive was always there. But for me, it was dominated almost entirely by acting and sport. I would do my academic work, but I
Are
didn't.
you the youngest of the family?
Yeah. And I would do my academic work, but I'd get okay grades on homework, but I'd be up till 1 a.m. trying to get it right, and then I would be crap in exams. I wouldn't pass an exam. So A levels I had to redo, and then having at a crammers, interestingly enough, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to my character. And then I went to drama school. I'd already joined the National Youth Theatre and played Macbeth there, which was one of the highlights of my career. That was a great gig at the age of 19, 20. Oh.
Yeah.
And I toured with them a couple of times. There was the thought. I nearly went to university. I went up to have a chat with Hull, and they were rehearsing a play that I'd just done, quite an obscure play. So I was able to quote it, and they were so impressed. They went, "Oh, well, what would you like us to offer you?"
Yeah, you're on tonight.
And I said, "Oh, well, a couple of seasons a deal will be fine." I couldn't get anywhere near that. And I think my life would have been very different if I had. My life would have been a very different life. I'd have, university as opposed to drama school was a different thing. The great thing about drama school, and I didn't really much enjoy myself there, is that it gives you a platform. That's the best thing. If you're a young actor who wants to go on, they can be great. There's quite a lot of cliques in them, inevitably. People going up there or going up there.
And at that time when you came out, there'd have been a lot of repertory theatres. So is that how you started?
Yes, there still were. Yes, it was. There was a theatre in Mould in North Wales. Great way to start. I thought, oh, great, I'm starting with Mould. And it was run actually by somebody who I vaguely knew, and he'd come to see a role I did, and I went. So I got offered an equity card, which you needed to start with, and I remember sitting there. He was rather disorganised director, this man, and he would often offer too many cards. I got it in writing, so I got there. I was safe. I was good. Okay, and I sat on the sofa, and they announced. They sort of said, "Okay, well, this cast is going there, and that cast is going there," and I was sitting next to this young guy called Rafe Fiennes, and and I said, "So Rafe, what parts are you doing?" And he listed these two parts. I said, "No, I'm doing those two." and so he went off to play in the lead in the main house, and I went off to play in the smaller house. But he'd been out for a year longer than me after RADA, so he was quite right too.
Yeah, I've heard of him. You've bumped into him since, no doubt.
Oh yeah. What a guy! Amazing, terrific.
And so from that repertory sort of opening, where was the sort of moment where you thought, "Oh no, I am a real actor now. I've done this."
Well, on the first night, it was really interesting. I'd watched Cyrano de Bergerac with Derek Jacobi in it the night before, and Sinead Cusack, and I suddenly realised, and I wrote in my diary at the time, I'm a colleague of theirs. There's one of the great things about this business, one of the things I love most, is that I can be a colleague of Sian Phillips, who's 30 years older than me. I could be a colleague of Bertie Halls, who's in the cast, who's 42 years younger than me. It's a wonderfully inclusive job like that. And I did a couple of months there. I came to London to do Young Vic and auditioned at the RSC. And this was sort of my break, was that I did 4 auditions at the RSC. I wanted Romeo. And actually, on my first audition, Sean Bean came out. And the casting director, God knows why, said, "Oh my God," and showed him to the lift. I remember he got in the lift, and as the lift doors closed, he went up and said, "Oh my God, he was amazing. He's just got the part." Well, why are you telling me that? Anyway, so I did this, and I thought, right, I've got to somehow impress these guys. And so I ended up doing 4 auditions in the space of a week, including Trevor Nunn, who said to me, just the two of us by this point, he said, "So what's your ambition in life?" Do I just say be an actor? It's a bit obvious. I said, to do the splits by the time I'm 25. He said, "Go on then." I went, "Okay." And I did the splits in front of him. But I did a technique here. This is a useful thing to know, I think, for youngsters doing auditions. But we used to have always face-to-face. There was nothing putting yourself online like we do nowadays, which is on tape, which is really difficult. And I really sympathise with people having to do this. I hate it. You don't get the personality across. You don't get the communicative responses that you require when you're acting and being directed by somebody. It just isn't there. But I went along. My brother had coached me a bit with some Othello, playing a character in it called Rodrigo. And Ollie, who's now, in fact, he's film director, and his first film was Othello with Lawrence Fishburne and Ken Branagh and myself. He pieced a couple of these speeches together, and I'd seen it done at the RSC not long before, and I knew how one of these directors really wanted it, would want to see it because I'd just seen his production, and I practiced that, but then I did something completely different. So I came in and I did something completely different. And he came up to me and said, Nat, how about trying it like this, with John Barton? And I'd already practiced it, so I did it. And honestly, I remember him turning to one of his colleagues and said, this boy can turn on a sixpence. Yes. and then just I didn't get the role. Obviously, Sean Bean did, but I got a call about 2 weeks later when I was at the Young Vic, and Terry Hands was running the theatre at the time. Terry had these big ivory hands as you went into the office. Well, I think they were plastic probably, but they were meant to look like ivory. And I mean, how narcissistic. Anyway, bless him. He sat back and he looked at me and said, "So, how long have you been in this business, Nat?" I said, "About 6 months." 6 months. And how old are you? 25, 24. Said, "Oh, and you turned us down." Oh, God. You know, just by sitting in the pub, you can learn so much from these guys in Stratford, you know. And he was trying to ask me to play just spear carrying in the background. Fair enough, a lot of people do, and be an understudy. And I've worked with a lot of people who've started like that, and they've done great. But I didn't want to do that. So I said, well, it's not so much the part, Terry. It's so much the place, Terry, as the part. And I've been offered Henry V down in Chichester and something, and I'd offered to somewhere else. I hadn't been offered anything. And I, as I was saying, I thought, hell, he can probably phone up the directors of those theatres and check. But he left the room for 2 minutes and came back and went, don't sign anything before the end of the day, will you? With the art theatres. I went, no. And it worked. I played 6 Jubilees over the next 2 years for the RSC.
Exactly.
And that got me, you know, on a Thursday afternoon, I think, Peter Hall came to see a production of Winter's Tale. And I was playing Florizel, who is not, I mean, flowery, yes, and all those things, but also he's a hard nut. That's how I played him. Because he's leaving his whole kingdom for the love of a girl. Takes a lot of courage to do that. So I played him quite a tough nut. And from that, I got Peter Hall.
It seems to me that you've got so many stories. You need an entire series just to yourself.
Yes, sorry, I do rattle on a bit, don't I? I really do. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But it is, I mean, all I mean is you've got to play your luck a little bit. And you've got to you think on your feet because, you know, like I said, I'm dyslexic. Some of these things were hard to do. But if you can just convince people that you're the person they want, then it can be, fruitful. Well, it's I'm going to be in Summer of 54, which is showing at the moment at Chichester, but next week, the last week of January, it'll be Richmond, followed by Cheltenham and then Oxford. So 3 very exciting venues coming up. Please come and join in.